Rebecca, after getting a mastectomy, did you ever think your cancer would have come back?
I always knew it was a possibility. Because they did say, I mean, they said, yeah, we got everything, we don't, you've got a low chance of a recurrence. So I hoped very much that I wouldn't. And I was pretty confident that I wouldn't, but there was always that niggling thought in the back of your mind. Anytime I get a lump anywhere or I started to feel unwell, it would always cross my mind, could it have come back?
So did they directly say to you, this is the way for it not to come back?
Well, like I said, it was bleeding, so I had my night dress on without going into too much detail. So you got to use your imagination a little bit, but have a nightie on, and one morning I noticed there was blood in the chest area. So I was like, oh, this is weird. So I was looking all around me like, oh, I don't see a cut. So I actually left it the first time. So I don't know, I just thought this was one of those things. It happened again 4 weeks later.
What were you told about mastectomy and why did you opt for that?
But I wasn't thinking I've got cancer. I really wasn't. Because so many times I've had warnings or I've had little things happen, and I've been so scared and worried and it wasn't worth me being worried. So that time I said, I'm not gonna be worried. I ain't got cancer.
Right.
The physio said, right, I'm going to send a letter to your GP, and we're going to ask them if they can refer you to get an MRI because you'll get it quicker. Okay, fast forward a few days later, I went to my GP. My GP looks at my notes and she's like this. Oh, okay, Rebecca. Open up a letter. I'm going to send you to A&E right now. So, because that's going to be the quickest way for you to get an MRI. Again, I'm not thinking of anything. I'm thinking I'm going to go to A&E, I'm going to come back, I ain't got cancer. But at least I will know, right?
Are you hungry that cancer come back?
Am I angry? No. Not that I'm happy about it, but I can't afford to be angry. Like, I feel like my emotions is what got me where I am now in the first place, through anxiety. So if I was to add anger to the mix, it'd be like adding petrol to a fire. So I can't be angry. And I don't ask like, why did I get cancer? Because anyone can get it. So, or who am I, who am I not to get cancer?
When Rebecca was first diagnosed with breast cancer in 2017, her world completely changed. She underwent a mastectomy, a reconstruction surgery, fought through the pain, and eventually heard the word every cancer patient dream of hearing: you are cancer free. But 7 years later, everything changed again. Rebecca was told her cancer had returned, this time as stage 4 breast cancer. After everything she had already endured, she's now faced another devastating battle that many people never see coming. How does cancer return after a mastectomy? What sign did she miss? What was going through her mind at that moment? And how do you keep fighting when life hits you twice? Today, Rebecca joined us to share her powerful journey through fear, resilience, survival, and hope. This is a story that will shock you, inspire you, and open your eyes to a reality of cancer recurrence. Welcome to the Ivy Cancer Podcast, where we discuss cancer, health, lifestyle, and healing. And today it is no different.
Rebecca, after getting a mastectomy, did you ever think your cancer would have come back?
I always knew it was a possibility. Because they did say, I mean, they said, yeah, we got everything, we don't, you've got a low chance of a recurrence. So I hoped very much that I wouldn't. And I was pretty confident that I wouldn't, but there was always that niggling thought in the back of your mind. Anytime I get a lump anywhere or I started to feel unwell, it would always cross my mind, could it have come back? So, whilst I didn't wake up every morning with that fear, every now and again it would come up. So I can't say that I had the mastectomy with the reconstruction and thought, yeah, that's it. I was very positive about what life would look like after the mastectomy and the reconstruction. I just thought, yeah, I'm going to go and live my life. I'm going to go and travel with my daughter. We're going to have so much fun. And we did all those things. But I knew it wasn't a guarantee.
The birth of this podcast is deeply personal. I've poured out countless hours into finding the right guests, shaping each conversation, and crafting every episode with intention. My drive comes from a live experience, from pain, resilience, and a desire to make a difference. By subscribing, you're not just supporting a podcast, you're helping grow a community, built on healing, honesty, and real impact. Thank you for being here.
What were you told about mastectomy and why did you opt for that?
Well, initially, that was my nightmare option. I would never have thought I would have gone for it. But, what happened with me was I didn't have a lump. I just had bleeding on my chest area, which I knew something was wrong. I went to the doctors and they said, right, you're going to have a 2-week appointment. Most people are not diagnosed with cancer, but, just let's get it checked out. So they did, what did they do? A scan, just a scan, sorry, and then also a biopsy. And that's how they knew it was cancer. So when I got into the room and the doctor finally told me like 2 days later, I'm sorry to tell you, you do have cancer. Of course I was shocked. And then they started to go through the options of what they could do. So initially, with my innocent little brain, when they said it's treatable, I thought, oh, okay then. That means you can just like give me a tablet or something and it will go away. Or I thought it was going to be something really simple. I didn't think they were going to cut or suggest cutting my body. So then there was no tablet option, but I heard lumpectomy. So that's where they would take out, just basically like dig out a part of around where the cancer is. But then they said, well, that would leave you with very uneven breasts. And also we could never be sure that we get everything. So really the way to get everything is through the mastectomy. And so that was horrific to me. But what? That's basically like an amputation of a part of my body. But then they started to go into the options for reconstruction. And so how they explain reconstruction was basically they could take a part of my body, which would most likely be my stomach, take the fat from there. And so once they've done the mastectomy, they use that to create a new one. And, surgery is so great these days that, you wouldn't really know the difference as such. And so I left the hospital that day committing to doing that. So then the mastectomy didn't seem so scary because it was straight away. So it would be one operation. It was only the one side and they would do it all in one. So they'd get rid of it and then they would give me a new one at the same time. So I wouldn't know the difference. And so in that way, it didn't seem so scary.
So did they directly say to you, this is the way for it not to come back?
No, but they did say that it's far less likely. They didn't say anything about it coming back. They just said, what did they say? Because this was like 2017, so you have to forgive me, it was a while ago.
So you didn't do the mastectomy the first time, you done it the second time?
No, the first time I got cancer. So this is 2017.
Okay.
So it wasn't an option second time round.
Okay.
It spread. Yeah.
Okay. So what was life like after mastectomy? What were some of the things you could do and would not do after surgery, or you could not do after surgery?
I was very careful, and at the time I used to teach Zumba. So I used to always run I got like a training business, so I've always run that, but I also taught Zumba on the side. So I took the year off teaching. No, that's not true. That's not true. I took a year to recover, but I was back in classes from week 12. I wasn't delivering them, but I'd hire someone else to deliver my classes, and I would be part of the class, but I'm not doing any jumping, I'm not doing any pumping. I know the dangers of me messing up my stitches, because obviously I had a stitch from hip to hip where they took out the fat from my stomach, plus then I had it all around my chest area. So I wasn't playing with that surgery. So I just really looked after myself very, very well in that time. But, after the year, I was more or less back to normal. And I was able to do my fitness as I did before. As I said, I did lots of traveling. So it really wasn't a big issue.
Did you do like that drainage procedure after the mastectomy where they
Yeah,
drain?
well, only whilst I was in hospital, they put a drain on there to drain away any excess fluid. But it was
Mhm.
only for I was in hospital for 5 days, and so during the time that I was there, I had that draining, which was very painful in the where they put it in your body. Um, but yeah, I didn't have it when I came home, thank goodness.
Who is Rebecca and why you decide to share your journey?
Okay, great question. So who am I? I'm a mom. I'm a generally a happy-go-lucky kind of person. I'm a very glass is half full kind of optimistic type person, but also realistic. I'm also the CEO and founder of Strawberry Words Training Consultancy, where we talk a lot about creating compassionate cultures and anti-discrimination, anti-racism. I'm also an author of a book. Is a cultural humility approach to anti-racism. So I'm Birmingham based, and yeah, that's me. And I also have stage 4 cancer in all of that. So that's why am I talking about it? Because you see, when I got the cancer the first time, it was stage 1 the first time. Um, I heard about those people who got stage 4 cancer, and I would turn my head the other way. Not that I didn't care, but the prospect of me getting to stage 4 was too scary.
Right.
So when I ever heard about that, like, oh no, 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 I beat it, I'm cancer free, yeah, everyone, I'm cancer free, woohoo!
Mhm.
And, I had all the pictures, lost weight, took loads of pictures, put them online. That was it. That was going to be my life, just being that person who beat cancer.
Right.
So when it come back in December of 25, so December just gone, you can't even imagine the shock. So it was 8 years later. You can't even imagine the shock that I felt. And I didn't go public for about 3 months because I really had to just deal with it. And I didn't know if I was going to go public with it because it's something, it's very private. It's a lot emotionally. Um, but then I just thought, actually, once I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? Actually, I don't feel like I'm going to die tomorrow because I've been around a lot of other stage 4 cancer patients who are just living their lives. I thought, actually, I can use this experience to help inspire other people. Because that's what I did the first time. Loads of people got in touch with me afterwards and said, "Oh, I found a lump, or what should I do, or whatever." But also, it's because it's not just about other people; it's about me as well. It's quite therapeutic for me to just be able to work through my feelings and talk about what's happening at the moment with me. I don't share everything because not everything's easy to share, but it just feels like the right time. It's kind of like a cha moment. And
Yeah.
that's, for those who are not Jamaican or have a Jamaican background, cha is like, it's like, how do you explain it? It's like, no, that can't be bothered, but it's like, I no holds barred anymore. Like, I'm just kind of gonna let myself just be myself and talk, stop feeling restricted. Often, particularly also again, I can only talk about Jamaican culture. That we often keep things to ourselves and we don't share some of the hardships, particularly when it comes to illness. You hear that so and so them dead, and you don't know why they died.
Right.
It's so common. Whereas we could have learned so much from other people's experience if they just spoke.
Right.
So that's those are some of the reasons why I speak.
And that is one of the reasons why I am doing my podcast as well, because when my mom was diagnosed, uh, I, I knew about cancer. I've heard about cancer. I thought John Tom had cancer. I know Miss Jane had cancer. I know a few people had cancer. But until it hit me, stop at my doorstep, I start like, wait a minute,
Mm,
what is cancer?
yeah,
So I realized I wasn't the only one who just know of cancer, but didn't know what is actually cancer.
yeah,
So a platform like mine's or yours, where people tell their story, will also help someone to understand. And on that note, I would like to ask you to take us back to 2017 when you first got diagnosed. What were the signs that led you to the GP in the first place?
Well, like I said, it was bleeding, so I had my night dress on without going into too much detail. So you got to use your imagination a little bit. But had my nightie on, and one morning I noticed there was blood in the chest area. So I was like, "Oh, this is weird." So I was looking all around me, I'm like, "Oh, I don't see a cut." So I actually left it for the first time because I don't know. I just thought this is one of those things. It happened again 4 weeks later, and when I looked, it was coming from my breast. To be specific, the end of my breast. So I'm like, whoa, this is weird. Like breasts don't bleed like that. Like I'm not breastfeeding. Like there's absolutely no reason for that to be happening. Like this is weird. Obviously, you then start doing all the googling, and that's when I went to the doctors, and that's when I went through that whole process.
You never
So
felt any pain or nothing.
no pain, no lump, nothing, just literal bleeding. And I was so, I really do think I was being watched and taken care of, because I never got that bleeding again from the time that I got the diagnosis, which was the 28th of April. I think, sorry, so it must have been probably maybe like the beginning of April that year, or even in March. That's when I saw the blood. I didn't get surgery until the 14th of June. I never got bleeding again. So if I didn't go to the hospital then, or go to the doctor, sorry, then I probably wouldn't be here now. In fact, the doctors did say to me that had this carried on in a year's time, if I hadn't noticed it, I probably would have passed. And that's crazy.
When the doctor said that to you, it's like a light bulb moment. I can imagine.
It's scary. I just felt lucky that I had been allowed to see that blood again. Spirit, God, somebody's watching me, because why would I, it didn't come again. So that was it's like I gave you one warning, you ignore that warning. I'm only going to give you one more warning.
Mhm.
You better go to the doctors, and I did. And that's how I was able to get through it the first time.
Prior to you seeing that sign, did you know of the signs before? Because you said you went on Google.
I obviously knew about the lump because I always talk about the lump when they're talking
No.
about breast cancer awareness, and
Right.
I didn't have a lump. So, but I also knew, I was aware that other things like you could get a rash, or some people have inverted nipples, like all sorts of things. But I didn't have all those things. But I did know that you just got to be careful when it comes to that area. Anything that's strange, get it reported.
Do you have cancer in your family at all?
Well, prostate cancer, but not breast cancer. So my granddad had prostate cancer, and I do know what I've learned since is that prostate cancer is related to breast cancer. So if you got one in the family, you're most likely going to get the other. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true because my mom had the BRCA gene mutation. And when I called the GP and to say, listen, I need a PSA test because obviously I'm doing research. I need to know more about my mom cancer. I need to know what cancer she had and stuff like that. And I came across this thing that's saying that when you have a family member, a primary family member that had breast cancer or prostate cancer,
yeah,
and you are, three times risk higher than the average person. So I was like, okay, I need to call my GP. So when I call my
yeah,
GP, they're like, um, uh, you can't get a PSA test. I was like, why? They say you're too young. And I'm like, but it's not because I'm too young why I call.
yeah,
At this
yeah.
point, I was thinking, why they don't ask me why I need the
Mm,
test? They just put
yeah,
me straight away. And this is where
instantly.
education is concerned because if I never clued up, I would have just like, you know what, and left. And
Yeah,
I can never tell whatever. I was just waiting for the age 45,
yeah,
as they said, to come. I was like, my mom passed of cancer, so I would like to know. And then
yeah,
that's when they give me that opportunity um, to do the test. So I think being clued up is really important,
yeah.
you know. Um, right. So you said you just feel like this, the liquid, the fluid that was coming through. Did you notice any other sign prior? Nothing
Nope.
at all.
Nothing at all.
Okay. So what change have you made physically, mentally, and spiritually since your diagnosis? And
I made lots of changes, but the changes were different from the diagnoses. So from the first diagnosis, um, yeah, well, the first thing I did when I got diagnosed, not even after I had the surgery, is I stopped eating meats. So I haven't eaten meats since. At the time, I stopped eating dairy and eggs. And so when I had my mastectomy, my cancer had actually reduced in size. And that's the only thing I did was change my diet.
right,
So that was like, so that was a sign to me like, okay, I don't need to be eating meat anymore. So
right.
that's the one thing that stayed constant. I was always exercising anyway, so that didn't change. I knew that, obviously I felt life was a lot more precious. So
Mhm,
then that's when I really wanted to make memories with my daughter.
mhm.
So we just did a lot of traveling. First it started with going around England, going to unique hotels, and then we did a bit of going abroad, and we still do that. Um, so yeah, they were the main things then in 2017. This time round, it's a lot more extreme. So I'm pretty certain. So I'm still obviously working on my diet. So I'm primarily plant-based, which I was anyway, but the difference is now is I don't eat processed food. So I will take time when I go to the supermarkets to check out all the packets. If there's any word on there that I don't recognize, it goes straight back. If it's not pure natural ingredients, I'm not buying it. Why is
Definitely,
it my, what's it for? It's not, what's it? It's got no business being in my body. So I'm
definitely.
eating primarily plant-based food and I feel great for it. I'm juicing, even a little bit left of my juice.
Mhm.
So I juice every day. Um, I meditate a
Mhm.
lot because that's what I was going to say. Like I recognize, like I know, I feel certain the reason why this cancer's returned as stage 4 is because emotionally, like I've been a very other people call me sensitive. I've really taken on board other people's emotions. I talk about race in my work a lot, and that's quite, anxiety fueling. So I really think I didn't take care of my emotional health. And so that's my priority right now. So what am I doing for that? As I said, the meditation. I'm also doing acupuncture, which is really good for anxiety. I go to what's known as practical philosophy classes, where we use philosophy to work on making our own lives happier and freer and so on. I stay away from people who might be causing me stress or want to cause me stress in stressful situations. Um, I'm drinking soursop tea. I've got a friend in the Gambia who sent a whole load of leaves from her garden, so I'm drinking all the teas. I now have a hobby of gardening. Again, just to keep my mind going. Um, I pray. I The exercise I've made sure that I'm out at least 6 days a week. So if I'm not in the gym, I'm at least going for a walk in the park, just being around nature
Mhm.
and taking supplements. Oh
What
gosh,
supplements
what
do you
else?
take?
Oh gosh, what do I take? Turkey tail, um, vitamin D with K3. Vitamin D with K3. Blue. I can't remember all the name. Beta glucan. Gosh, a whole heap.
Don't put too much stress on your brain.
Yeah, yeah. A whole
Um,
heap.
so now that we are in 2026, um, you were diagnosed the first time in 2017,
In
and
2017.
7 to 8 years after,
8, yeah.
you were diagnosed again,
Mhm.
but with stage 4 breast cancer.
Yeah.
When you get that news, I assume you was into the doctor's office. Am I correct? How did you get that news break to you?
Oh gosh. Okay. So let me go back so you understand the symptoms because this time there were symptoms.
Hmm.
The first one was I had one day, I looked in the mirror, I had this massive lump on my chest. I'm like, whoa, like, where did that come from? Went to the doctors. I didn't see a doctor. I saw a paramedic the first time, or a nurse, whatever. And she goes, she's feeling it. She goes, oh, it's a fatty. Sorry, I'm knocking the mic. But she goes, oh, that's a fatty lipoma. Nothing to worry about. But we'll get it checked out. So about 4 weeks later, I didn't hear anything. So I contacted them again. I said, okay, can we get it checked out? So I went again. This time I saw, let's say, the paramedic. Again, she checked it because it was kind of soft to touch. Oh, it's just a fatty lipoma. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, we'll get you an ultrasound, but it's going to take a few weeks. Now, if I was really thinking, I would have, and I did say to them, I have a history of breast cancer, but because they were so confident that it was a fatty lipoma, and I looked it up and I thought, oh yeah, actually, right. And obviously, I didn't want it to be cancer. I just kind of like was as laid back as they were. So I didn't say, come on, I need a 2 week urgent appointment. So that was that. So this was back in, let's say, June 2025. At the same time, I had what the doctors told me was sciatica. And I even remember, I thought about this the other day. I remember saying to the doctor, but I've not had a scan. So how do we know this is sciatica? Because it kept getting worse. Like I was doing weights in the gym. I was working with a personal trainer. And one day my back just went and I couldn't walk and I was limping. And that limp got worse. Or I was just limping. And oh, the pain, Brian. Sometimes at night time, like I couldn't. I was crying in bed because of pain and my right leg, which was in line with what sciatica was. I just couldn't bear it. One time I called 111, and I couldn't go downstairs to get the tablets. My daughter wasn't here at the time. The painkillers. I was in so much pain. So I had to wait to see a physiotherapist, like months. So all of this is building up, right? So June is when I first see somebody. I get the ultrasound in October, finally. And then end of October, that's when I get a phone call from the doctor saying, we need you to come in. We've had your results back. Doctor sees me. Yeah, so he's checking me out and he's feeding it. Goes, you see this hard area? That's the bit that we're really concerned about. I didn't know there was a hard area. Because I didn't think about it. I didn't focus on it. So then that's when everything started kicking off now. I had all these sorts of appointments and I try and keep this in order. But I went to go and see the physiotherapist. The physiotherapist was a bit weirded out by the fact that I wasn't responding. You know when they like tap your knee and your knee's supposed to move up or whatever? None of that happened. My body just wasn't responding. But I wasn't thinking I've got cancer. I really wasn't. Because so many times I've had warnings or I've had little things happen, and I've been so scared and worried and it wasn't worth me being worried. So that time I said, I'm not gonna be worried. I ain't got cancer.
Right.
The physio said, right, I'm going to send a letter to your GP, and we're going to ask them if they can refer you to get an MRI because you'll get it quicker. Okay, fast forward a few days later, I went to my GP. My GP looks at my notes and she's like this. Oh, okay, Rebecca. I open up a letter. I'm going to send you to A&E right now. So, because that's going to be the quickest way for you to get an MRI. Again, I'm not thinking of anything. I'm thinking I'm going to go to A&E and I'm going to come back. I ain't got cancer. But at least I will know, right? Oh, so she gives me the letter. She didn't put it in an envelope. So I got to A&E. Before I gave them the letter, I said, do you mind if I just take a picture of the letter? Because I knew you're going to be in A&E for a long time, so give me something to do. Who told me to go and do that? Looked at the letter, and it said, because I could have had a CT scan by then as well, I just hadn't had the results, so I was waiting for that. It said, multiple lung metastases. So I'm like, put it into ChatGPT. What does all this mean? ChatGPT was going on stupid. It kept saying, oh no, it doesn't say you've got metastases. It said, and I'm arguing with the ChatGPT and A&E, right? Until eventually it says, oh, actually you are right. It does say that you've got more. But then it's trying to make me feel good. Yeah, but you know what? Until a radiologist sees it, this could be, you know, a cold. You said you recently had COVID because I think I had COVID. It could be that, right? So again, I was trying to convince myself that it wasn't cancer, and then I got to go and see the doctor, and they were giving me like some blood tests, and the
Hmm.
blood test was all right. Like it was fine. So I knew that if the blood tests come back, there's quite a good chance, like okay, there's quite a good chance that I haven't got cancer. So it came back
Hmm.
okay. So I was like, whew, yeah. And oh yeah, what's this thing about me having multiple metastases in my lung?
Shove it off.
The doctor looks in the computer. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So what do you mean? Yeah, there are lots of tumors. Yeah, yeah, but I've just recently had COVID. It could be that. No, if it was that, or the tumors, or the marks on the screen, whatever they call them, they would be clumped together. Yours are not clumped together. So I'm by myself because my family's on the way, but I'm by myself at this point. I go out and sit in the waiting area. Couldn't hold it, Brian. Couldn't hold it. I cried, I cried, I cried, I cried, I cried. Lovely Asian lady came up to me and she just, was just trying to console me. And then a nurse came over. Everybody can see that you're crying. I don't care. I was just, oh, it was so devastating, so devastating. And so, yeah, I was left in limbo because I hadn't had it confirmed. Well, I hadn't had it confirmed because it's still in my mind. I'm thinking about what ChatGPT said. It could be COVID. I don't care. She's not a radiologist. So I had a week of still not knowing. And yeah, finally I got to see the oncologist a week later, and he confirmed not only was it in my lungs, but there's a large tumor in my pelvic area, my sacrum area, and that was why I was having difficulty walking.
Okay.
So it wasn't a bad appointment because what he said was, do you want me to give you the bad news, whatever. So just tell me what it is. He goes, well, the bad news is that it's incurable, but the good news is that it's very treatable. And he was quite like not upbeat, but kind of like it's not a big deal kind of thing. So that really helped me.
Hmm.
I could go on, but basically, yeah, that's how I found out.
So technically, he told you that the cancer is incurable.
In no uncertain terms, he told me that.
Right. Um, how did you take that message?
I'm glad you asked. I'm very glad you asked because it's not true. What I know to be true is for him or and for a lot of the NHS as an establishment, that is where they cut things off. I mean, they don't even count the amount of stage 4 cancer patients. Can you imagine? They just write us off, give us medication and write us off. But since then, I've learned that so many people have got to the point of no evidence of disease, or just in remission, or just cancer free for years. Now, granted, it's not a lot of people, but
Right.
people get to that stage. So obviously, since I know that's a possibility, that's what I'm going for. How dare you tell me it's incurable when that's not
Yeah.
true?
Yeah, you're not accepting that.
No, no, I don't get me wrong. I totally understand. It's a very undesirable place to be because a lot of people do die, but not everybody does.
Right.
So why are they not telling people the truth?
Right. I met someone on TikTok because we met on TikTok as well,
Mm-hmm.
and they gave her 3 months to live.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she never took any form of their medication, and she was declared free 14 years now.
Wow.
14 years now. So I'm
I've heard
glad that you're
many
not
stories.
accepting what they're telling you, because what I've learned is that our body was designed to heal itself.
Yes,
We just need to give it the right condition.
that's right.
I'm still researching this cancer, but I notice there's so much people now are getting cancer.
Yeah.
And the age group as well. before cancer was like an old people thing.
Mm.
Now people are having cancer, breast cancer. I've seen the youngest person I've seen with breast cancer, she was 23.
Yeah.
It says a lot to me. But
Yeah.
earlier you mentioned that you had cut out milk from an
Hmm.
earlier stage.
Hmm.
What was the reason why you cut milk out? Can you tell us?
Um, yeah, it's just that I knew from what I read, dairy and meat were acidic for one, and you
Mhm,
want your body to be as alkaline as possible.
mhm.
But this, I mean, I knew, you know what? These are things I knew from a long time ago, but I just ignored. But like, there's hormones in it because obviously they feed the cows with hormones, and sometimes parasites like little insects, like it had no business being in my body.
I think 70% of or 80% of breast cancer is mainly hormone driven.
Yeah,
So if you're going to feed on chicken, then you're feeding the cancer.
yeah, that was
So
it as well. The hormones.
yeah. Um, how do you cope mentally with the fear and the uncertainty that comes with stage 4 diagnosis?
Um, there's lots of things now. So I'm part of one of the first things I did was I joined a online cancer group. I was a bit scared because I didn't do it in the first time because what I didn't want to do was to be a part of a group where people were really depressed and sad and it was an uninspiring place because that would make me feel worse. But no, this one, it's an American-based one, breastcancer.org, and like a weekly Zoom meeting for stage 4 breast cancer. Is it stage? Yeah, breast cancer um, patients, and everyone was so uplifting. And I remember asking them the same question you just asked me. I asked them because I was still like learning. And then one woman who's had mets to the brain, so tumors in her brain, for over 10 years. She said, well, most days I don't even remember I have cancer. I'm like, what? Like, that's a possibility? Like, you can like live and not think about cancer?
Mm,
Wow, that's amazing. So it just gave me a different impression of what life could be like living with breast cancer. And that's not the same for everybody. I'm not on chemo, so I imagine that if I was, I wouldn't be able to live life how I live now. But I'm on the medication I'm on, ribociclib, letrozole, dinacibab, Zoladex, it enables me to live pretty much a normal life. But what I also do, as I said, meditation is massive. But when I panic in the moment, um, watching videos, testimonials of people who've overcome stage 4 cancer really helps. So I will go on YouTube and I will watch Joe Dispenza testimonials. There's a lot of people who, through his meditations, have overcome their stage 4 cancer. Also, Chris Beats Cancer. I read a lot of books. Chris Beats Cancer, his book.
I think
Also,
I think I listened to his. I think you have a
yeah,
podcast.
yeah, his podcast is really good. So I listen to his podcast. Radical Remission. Again, there's the book, but also they've got a podcast. So
Mm.
all of these and all this evidence of people beating stage 4 cancer and other types of cancer. But that's what I listen to give me hope. Also, there's people I know in my own personal life who've
Mhm.
overcome it. Sometimes I have conversations with them or just remember that they exist because, yeah, sometimes it does get hard.
Are you hungry that cancer come back?
Am I angry?
Yeah.
No, not that I'm happy about it, but I can't afford to be angry. Like I feel like my emotions is what got me where I am now in the first place through anxiety. So if I was to add anger to the mix, it'd be like adding petrol to a fire. So I can't be angry, and I don't ask like why did I get cancer, you know, because anyone can get it. So or who am I? Who am I not to get cancer?
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? Like maybe this is I don't know, but I'm not angry. I'm not angry. Do I want it in my body? Definitely not. But anger has never been a thing.
I commented on someone page recently this week, and she was crying and she was upset. Obviously, I'm not in her shoes, but as someone that's been doing research at cancer, I tried to give her some comforting words, and I said to her, um, I can't tell you how to feel, but try to stress less because stress feeds cancer. And she said to me, where did I get that false information from? Stress doesn't feed cancer. So I was like, okay, you need to do some research because it raises your cortisol and it alters your DNA. So you need to do some research. And anything alters your DNA, it gives you, it actually is feeding your cancer. But when she said that to me, it literally opened my eyes to see so much that a lot of us really need to be more clued up, and especially when you have cancer. So I'm glad that you said that you are not angry because it's the last thing that you will need. Doing what you're doing helps with your coping mechanism and it helps obviously to decrease your stress hormones and that helps. So keep doing what you're doing. And what are some of the things that you wish you had done differently before cancer?
I mean, I made a video about it the other day. I'm 49, I have no bones about saying that. And so I was starting to go through perimenopause. And because of that, um, I started to put on a lot of weight because I got to a great weight after the first time I had cancer. And that's why I was with a personal trainer because all of a sudden, whoom, the weight just came on. And now, when I think about it, actually, the time that I put on the weight was when that lump appeared.
Mhm.
So I think there's definitely a connection. Maybe one day I'll find out exactly how that works. But anyway, so what I would have done now, knowing where I am, I would have been so much more on top of my weight loss because I convinced myself, because I'd put on a lot of weight, I convinced myself that I couldn't lose it. I just didn't think that I could. Like, I did reduce the amount of calories that I ate, and I did exercise, but it wasn't showing up on the scale. So because a lot of other people who were going through perimenopause said, I can't shift the weight, I took on that belief. Now I am in a position where I've lost 2.5 stones since all of this has been happening. And that's because I changed my diet. So I always had it within me to lose the weight. I just didn't believe that I could. Like, I didn't want to. Who wants? I didn't want to eat plant-based food. Ugh, like that's like boring, and I like to eat some fun foods at times. But that's what I'm doing now. Don't get me wrong. Every now and again, I would allow myself a treat, but for the most part, I'm really watching what I eat, and that's enabled me to lose 2.5 stones.
Yeah.
So if I could go back, and I don't regret it because I thought I was doing the right thing at the time,
Mhm.
but if I had it to do all over again, I would have tried much harder to lose the weight. Now knowing that it was possible, I
Yeah.
just wasn't doing all the things that could lead me to that point.
Right.
Um, Also, with regards to stress, um, I think I would have been a lot more on it, as in not being around people that were causing me stress, not doing the types of work that led me to be in stressful situations. I would have, especially as I said, this is my second time, so it's like that Jamaican. No, I don't want to say that. I was going to say those who can't hear must feel, but it ain't that. I think that would be too harsh to say that to myself because I
Mhm.
was doing a lot. I did go off and, as I said, do all the fun things with my daughter. I did. I didn't go back to eating meat. Um, and as Maya Angelou says, and I'm probably going to get the quote wrong, but it's something along the lines of, you do what you do the best you can and until you know better. You
Mhm.
do the best you can right now until you can do better. And that's what I did. I did the best I could do until I could do better. So there's no regrets as such, but if I could do things over again, definitely weight loss, definitely be so mindful of my stress. Um, I think that's it.
There's so much happening in your life apart from cancer.
Mm,
Um, you mentioned it earlier that you wrote a book and you have your own business.
mhm.
You also won an award. for the Birmingham Black-owned um, business. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was 2022, and I won the award for Educator of the Year because we were doing a lot of education around anti-racism and anti-discrimination. So we work with universities, councils, the NHS, and a whole lot of bodies, create theatres and whatnot. And we trained a lot of people to be able to have the conversation, not only about race but discrimination in general, gender issues but through a compassionate way, which is where the cultural humility comes in. So yeah, that's what that was for, which was very nice to be rewarded.
What inspired you to get involved with anti-racism?
Well, my company started out as a theatre and education company way back in like 2001. And so often we would go into schools, deliver workshops, what people would, like theatre workshops, what the teachers would look at us, see that we're like black, and they'd ask, oh, could you come in and deliver a workshop around culture or identity? And we often got asked to come in for Black History Month. So we're always talking about that type of thing. That then grew into delivering cultural awareness training for teachers. And then I didn't really want to talk about race because I knew it would be stressful, and especially after I'd had cancer the first time. But then 2020 came, George Floyd's murder happened, and all of a sudden I kept getting the emails. Rebecca, do you remember you did a workshop about cultural awareness? Could you come in and talk about anti-racism? Like, oh, wow, they really want to hear this. Because obviously I do want people to not be racist and treat people well. And so, yeah, that desire to just want to change things kicked in, and we just hit the ground running.
Tell us about the book that you wrote.
Yes, it's called A Cultural Humility Approach to Anti-Racism, and it's guidance for leadership, so managers and leaders. And it's really a way of teaching people the fundamentals of what racism is, but then also using what's known, I won't go into too much detail, but it's using a framework known as cultural humility to do that. And it just basically means constantly self-reflecting. So asking myself, was I biased in that situation, or could I have dealt with that differently? It's also dedicating your life to learning about others, because when we learn about others, we can get rid of our ignorance, and we can do things better. It's also dedicating your life to learning about different power systems, again, racism, discrimination, all that sort of thing, and it's doing that on an organization wide as well. And the book's doing really well. I've had quite a few reviews come in, and people just saying how helpful, for instance, the reflection questions are. And one organization got in touch a few weeks ago, and they're going to buy it for all their staff, because it's just rather than like kind of like holding people's feet to the fire and saying, right, you shouldn't be racist. It's a bit more of a holistic way of having a conversation about racism, where we can it's still a difficult conversation, but it's just a bit more of a softer landing. Yeah.
How someone can purchase your book?
Via Amazon. So yeah, literally, as I said, it's called A Cultural Humility Approach to Anti-Racism. So it's on Amazon. It's also on Kindle. Kindle versions, I think, $6.99, and the book itself is $14.99.
Is it okay to send me the link to put it in the show notes so that people can?
Absolutely.
What would you say to a woman that watching this video right now who just been diagnosed with cancer? What advice you would give to them?
I would say it's difficult because everyone's different, right? But I would say to her, I was going to say don't panic, but that doesn't do anything because you're still going to panic. I would introduce her to the support group that I've been a part of, just because it's been so helpful to me, which is the breastcancer.org, stage 4 breast cancer group, just because you're around others. And as I said, they're quite upbeat. I would also recommend her reading Radical Remission, the book by Dr. Turner. I can't remember her first name, but and then also Chris Beats Cancer. Read those two books. Also, I'd suggest reading Eat to Beat Disease by Dr. William Lee, because again, with regards to food, and he's like a head cancer researcher. hold on a minute. I just thought if she did one thing, let's say she didn't want to do all that stuff. If there's one thing, the one thing that made a difference to me, I listened to a podcast interview with Mel Robinson and Dr. Dawn Musalem. Dr. Dawn Musalem is somebody who had not breast cancer, but she had stage 4 cancer. She overcome it. She had heart failure. She overcome that. She's an oncologist. And she said, she worked for the Mayo Clinic, and this is what got me. She said, "Oh, we hardly get women who die anymore." I'm like, "You talk about breast cancer?" You see, everything she said in that podcast, I wrote down, and I'm still doing to this day. Eating the blueberries, the kiwi, the looking at the ingredients in the supermarket, the juicing, the everything, the exercise, the everything. I followed that podcast. So I'll send you the link to that because I think
I
to
watched it
me,
when
you
you
did.
mention it on TikTok. I
Yeah,
did definitely go and take it in.
yeah.
It was, trust me, it was a good eye-opening podcast. Definitely was.
It was brilliant because it gave so much hope.
Yeah,
And so that's what, just so if there's one thing I'd say, watch that.
definitely. Tell me one thing that these listeners that's watching this podcast that don't know about Rebecca.
There's lots. um, what? Gosh, it's a really big question. Um, well, I guess what only because I'm looking at it right now is that before I was diagnosed, I was looking at taking what's known as a quantum leap. And I don't even know the best way to explain that. You'd have to Google it. But basically, it's where you really radically use your mindset to get you to a place where you want to be, right? And so this is what I wrote down. I'm sorry, let me just take it off the wall. Oh, it doesn't let me take it off. But anyway, keep your eyes on the promised land is one. Psychological soreness is temporary and part of the course is two. And number three is know what's coming. So I still believe that I'm going to take a quantum leap, but with regards to my stage 4 cancer. Yeah? So I'm keeping my eyes on the promised land, which is no evidence of disease for the rest of my life. Okay? Psychological soreness is temporary and part of the course. So the days where I just feel like, oh, this is a lot, it's just a part of how this journey is. And keep your eyes, know what's coming. Know what's coming is a much richer life, regardless of whether I get to NED or not. So of course I would love to, but I gotta keep it real. I know that a lot of people don't, but I can still live a rich life on the way, on the journey. So it's really about enjoying the journey.
You are an actor.
I was,
You was.
yeah.
Do you always wanted to be an actress?
Um, yeah, I guess so. When I was younger, um, yeah, because I wanted my voice to be heard. I mean, I went on to be not only just an actor, but a TV presenter, which was great, TV and radio presenter. So I guess I've always wanted to pass on messages which can help society, help women, help black people, lots of different groups. I've always wanted to be that person, but I think also in me doing that, I haven't taken care of myself. So yeah, as I go forward, I now think more about me and the impact whatever work I do has on me.
Rebecca, thank you for joining the Ivy Cancer podcast. I've learned some things that I've never learned before about you. And I am praying and I'm hoping that, you get the best results. And with your mindset and your resilience, I believe that you will accomplish great things through your journey. If someone wants to follow you, how could they connect? What's your socials?
Um, Thank you. And I just want to say also, because you've been very gracious and allowed me to have the space, but I just think that what you're doing is pretty amazing. I don't obviously I didn't know your mom, but I'm pretty sure she'd be very proud of you, of what you're doing, because especially as a man as well, a lot of men kind of shy away from these conversations,
Yeah.
but they're important conversations to be had, because everyone has women in their families, but also cancer can affect anybody.
Anybody.
So I just really respect what you're doing, and I just hope this podcast goes from strength to strength.
Thank you very much.
You're
Appreciate that.
welcome. No, you're welcome. I don't remember my TikTok. Rebecca Author. Rebecca Author is Bex in the City, I guess is my at Bex in the City. And that's what it is on Instagram as well. Bex in the City.
You can send me the email. Send me email of all the links that you have,
Okay.
and I'll put them in the show notes. We have a closing tradition on this podcast where the guests leave an encouraging word for the guest that's coming up, not knowing who that guest is. And the last guest of interview goes by the name of Monica. She has stage 4 cancer, colon cancer, and they told her as well that she is incurable. And she said, strength does not come from what you can do. It comes from overcoming the things you thought you couldn't do. And that was her encouraging words.
And to my regular listeners, leave a comment and let me know what you think about this podcast. And if you think you like this one, wait till you see this one. Until next time, stay safe, stay blessed, and eat healthy.